Hey, this is your boy DJ Tanner right here on Chat and Chill with those Tanner Tudes. Well, the question was posed to me and I thought about it for a while. I've been thinking about this for about maybe 3 days. Yeah, about 3 days. Somebody wanted to know, in light of all of the racial profiling and in light of all the barbecue Beckys and the poolside pearlies and the polo child couldn't sell water in front of house, and this other retarded dude just the other day want to ask the black chick for her ID because she at the pool by which she lives there too. I mean, it's all gotten really, really crazy. So they come from beating and shooting and killing our black men to blatantly racially profiling anybody who they think does not belong where they live. So that gives you back to that question: why does the world hate black people? Well, this is my opinion, it's my podcast, and this is my opinion only. If you do not choose to approve of this podcast, then you know that you can listen to any other broadcast or podcast, and I will very, very happily give you a list of others. But with my Tannertudes, I will be straightforward, honest, and to the point. Now, these opinions, like I said, will vary, and that is fine. Everybody has an opinion. Now, the world, though, is very clear on its feelings toward black people. But the question I pose is why? What did black people do collectively to the world to warrant such aggressive behavior towards us? You think about from the shores of Africa to the white-owned Spanish slave ships of Europeans, from the first black slave auction in America to the first lash of a whip cracking across the black back of a slave. You know, the black experience in America has been a total and complete failure since the first slave transaction was finalized in 1619. For so long, we had no role model to look up to until Frederick Douglass came along. Now, during slavery, black people had to endure forced labor, had to lean on religions and learn religions that they never heard of, had to follow their infant children Man, did y'all know that back in the slavery days that black infant children were used as alligator bait? That's how much they thought of African American and blacks as slaves. That is how much we were considered as human, to allow an infant child to be used as alligator bait. And you wonder why blacks are still angry. And I find that you become more so angry, and I want to also use the word aware. Once you learn more, you become more aware that what really went down, because it's not taught in the quote unquote American history books. Those things are not taught to our little black children. And it's sad and it's pitiful that it's not. But they were treated like animals, really. Then in 1865, here comes the Civil War that ended, and slaves were freed. Well, we were sort of freed, but that's another story for another day. However, you got to keep in mind now that the white Democratic dominated states had no interest in giving black people equal protection under the law, which the 15th Amendment would have given them, or it ratified that year. Now, it was, however, ratified in 1868. So, what were freed blacks? We were, 1865 to 1868 residents? Yeah. We were, and still are to this day, simply residents of the United States, not citizens. Think about it. Both the Star-Spangled Banner and the Declaration of Independence of the United States either flatly ignore the fact that freed slaves are people, or boldly advocates violence toward them. You see, then we got segregation. Jim Crow era, where the southern states passed laws that alienated blacks in every single solitary aspect of life. At the time, America was covered in signs that read, "No coloreds." Multiple generations of blacks lived and died with those words burned into their memories. Those signs were relegated whether black people could eat at a restaurant, shop at a store, sit in a public park, drink from a water fountain, use a public restroom, ride a bus, hail a taxi. Man, you name it. We couldn't do it. Then when white society told us we were not welcome once the shackles came off, we had no choice but to start from scratch. Well, oddly enough, enterprises like Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma began. Individuals such as Booker T. Washington and Madam C.J. Walker, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey came into prominence. But you know what is really ironic is that for a time, Black Wall Street flourished economically until white racists decided to change that and devastated the entire city with the aid of the Tulsa Police Department by using bombs and gunfire. Yeah, y'all asked for it, here it come. So stories like this, echo from the past because voiceless and it's voiceless in lost times. But you see, boy. Sometimes I just have to shake my head. I bring up things and I resurface things for the here and now. Because it's probably because black patients have done the most for scientific research since the turn of the 20th century. You don't have to believe me. Just look up Henrietta Lacks on Tuskegee syphilis experiment. I think it's essentially a case of what human beings have witnessed generally over the last 500 years. Namely, what humans have witnessed is a lot of European white dominance and prosperity, and a lot of African black misery and chaos. I don't think we can casually put aside the role that the century-long transatlantic slave trade played in shaping this world's view of black inferiority and white superiority, as well as the latter trend of European powers in conquering and colonizing various non-white nations. You see, even though most people would rather forget many of the historically racist views throughout the world, where it went far beyond a mere belief that one race was superior to another. Some people even today question if blacks were fully evolved. And apparently white people weren't the only ones wondering, because see, colorism ran rampant among black people in America and abroad, and it still runs today to an extent. Now note that skin lightening industry in Africa, well, hell, look at the similar reality in India and the Philippines too. This whole skin lightening thing has gone just totally and completely out of hand. I mean, I do not believe that Tamar Braxton got no damn skin disease. Tamar Braxton and all her sisters lighten their skin, except for that little dog, and I can't think of her name. But I forgot her name. But anyway, I don't linger on people's names. But anyways, this whole skin lighting thing has got way out of control. I'm talking about people who used to be brown, and now they damn near half white, pale, and peach looking. It just amazes me that you want to spend that kind of time to lighten your skin, to make you feel like you are a part of something. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now y'all got those apps on your phone where you could just click when you take your picture, and you could click that app and make you look about 10 shades lighter. It's a damn shame. Because what you're telling white America is that you guys are right. Dark ain't right. And that's some bullshit, because see, I will always been the one to say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. So colorism is alive and well. You gotta think about those hot button conversations surrounding black hair, especially with women. I remember years and years ago, I don't recall any news stories that portray black people as a people. And while I'm talking, I'm thinking. As anything other than victims, problems, or an overall pitiful type of situation. There were always exceptions to the rules, of course, like, from George Washington Carver to, May Carroll Jemison. But as people, we never seem to be on the forefront of anything admirable besides arts, entertainment, sports, and the civil rights movement. Or at least it seemed that way. I mean, I remember when Ethiopia was experiencing like a horrific famine in like the 80s, and a long roster of sympathetic American rock stars organized this big, huge benefit concert to help. Interestingly, it was around the same time that Japan, vanquished nation from World War II, and it was kicking butt seemingly in every way, technology and economically and all of that. But then as a black kid growing up observing these images consistently throughout our lives, at some point, we and many of our peers could not help but ask what happened to us. I say that to say that if we have been asking ourselves that question for all these years, then surely non-blacks have been doing the same thing. The Earth's population is ingrained with the idea that black people are something other than completely equal. That's just reality, and it takes a certain amount of education and perspective to make sense of it. But unfortunately, most people don't want to be bothered. Black people are looked down upon because many of them remain in impoverished situations after the past 100 years of oppression and colonization. I'm only speaking the truth, because you see, when culture clash over resources, you have the physical conflict of wars and colonization, but you also have societal clashes with superior power. European and other cultures were able to establish narratives by which African people were labeled as primitive or barbaric. This would then be associated with the presumption of a lack of intelligence, and often combined with religious racism. So the belief that the more powerful group found success by the will of God, that they were the chosen ones surrounded by lesser people. Now, the same thing could be seen anywhere colonialism occurred, where the dominant invading culture looks down upon the godless heathens, as they call them. But see, the Africans and their descendants were targeted for discrimination is a result of this mindset, which became a self-affirming mindset. The circular logic was that Africa was underdeveloped, that it was undeveloped because the people were inferior. So it was justified to subjugate African cultures, which further prevented them from advancing, which reinforced the judgment that there was something lesser about the people and the culture. Think about it. We have to understand, and we have to teach our children the history and why there's so much hatred. And what bothers me the most is we need to stop setting our children up to be basketball players, football players, musicians, and rappers, because there's more to us as a people than just that. Because what I find just totally and completely appalling is that you are more inclined to be treated like you have good sense when you are carrying a $5 million tag on your head that says he's a 7-foot tall basketball player that's going to make these white people millions of dollars. But nobody ever sees the doctors in motion, the chiropractors in motion, the surgeons in motion, because they're all behind the scenes taking care of the people that's beating their heads up against the concrete and being slammed against the ground to entertain the white people. And that's just what's real. I didn't mean to go over my time, but I'm out of here. It's just something I had to get it off my mind, get it off my chest, and get it out the email. It is done. It is so. If you like to click the like button. Share, click the share button. Let somebody know that Tan is on the rise. Peace.